I never thought my daughter-in-law would look me in the eye and call me an embarrassment. But there she stood, in that expensive kitchen with the marble countertops I'd helped pay for, her perfectly manicured hand resting on my son's arm like she owned him. "Dorothy," she said, her voice sweet as poisoned honey, "you're just too much for our circle. Too loud, too ordinary." My son said nothing. He just looked at his shoes while his wife dismantled me piece by piece. They wanted me gone, erased from their new perfect life. What they didn't know was that I was about to become impossible to ignore. If you're still listening, tell me where you're watching from. Every comment you leave is another mark in this journey. And if this story has touched you, don't forget to hit like so it can reach even further. My name is Dorothy. Dorothy Chen. And yes, that's my real last name. Married into it 34 years ago when I fell in love with a man whose family had come from nothing, just like mine. We built everything together, my late husband James and I. Every brick, every dollar, every dream. He passed 5 years ago, lung cancer, and left me with memories, a modest inheritance, and a son who seemed to forget where he came from the moment he married Vanessa. Let me take you back 6 months to the beginning of this whole mess. It was a Sunday afternoon in late spring, and I'd been invited to my son Marcus's house for what they called a casual family brunch. Casual. I should have known that word was a trap. I showed up in my favorite purple blouse, the one with the embroidered flowers, comfortable slacks, and my good shoes. Not fancy but clean and presentable. I'd brought homemade dumplings, the pork and chive ones Marcus used to beg me to make when he was growing up. Vanessa opened the door. She was wearing all white linen, the kind that costs more than my monthly grocery bill. Her smile was the kind you give a door-to-door salesperson you're about to dismiss. "Oh, Dorothy," she said, her eyes scanning me from head to toe. "You're here." Not "Hi, Mom." Not "Come in, we're so glad to see you." Just, "You're here." Like I was unexpected furniture that had been delivered to the wrong address. I walked into their home, that showplace they'd bought in the gated community. All marble and glass and uncomfortable-looking furniture that nobody actually sits on. There were other people there, couples I didn't recognize, all dressed like they were auditioning for a wine commercial. Vanessa took my container of dumplings with 2 fingers, like it might contaminate her. "How homemade," she said, that word dripping with something I couldn't quite name. "I'll just put these in the kitchen." The kitchen, I noticed, was catered. There were trays of tiny artistic food arrangements that looked beautiful and probably tasted like cardboard. My dumplings, I was sure, never made it out of the container. Marcus came over, kissed my cheek quickly, and immediately started introducing me to his guests. "This is my mother, Dorothy," he said, and I noticed he didn't add anything else. Not who raised me by herself after Dad got sick. Not who worked 2 jobs so I could go to college. Just Dorothy. A name. An obligation. The afternoon crawled by. I tried to join conversations, but I kept getting these looks. When I laughed, it was too loud. When I shared a story about Marcus as a child, Vanessa changed the subject. When I mentioned my work at the community center, helping elderly immigrants with their paperwork, someone actually said, "How charitable of you." Like it was cute, like I was playing at making a difference. But the moment that stays with me, the one that still makes my chest tight, happened near the end. I was in the kitchen, alone for a moment, when I overheard Vanessa talking to one of her friends in the hallway. They didn't know I could hear them. "She's just so much," Vanessa was saying. "Did you see what she wore? And those dumplings, God. We had a caterer." "Well, she's from a different generation," her friend said, trying to be diplomatic. "It's not the generation, it's the class," Vanessa hissed. "Marcus worked so hard to get where he is, and she's just a reminder of where he came from. I love him, but honestly, his mother is an embarrassment." There it was. That word. Embarrassment. I set down the glass I'd been holding carefully, quietly. My hands were shaking, but I made them steady. I walked out of that house without saying goodbye, and I cried the whole drive home to my small apartment across town. The place I downsized to after James died, because I didn't need much and I wanted to help Marcus with his student loans. The modest home that suddenly felt like evidence of my inadequacy. For a week I didn't hear from them. Not a call, not a text. It was like I'd been erased. I went to my job at the community center, helped Mrs. Huang fill out her citizenship paperwork, taught Mr. Rodriguez how to video call his grandchildren in Mexico, organized the food drive for the homeless shelter. My life felt full, purposeful. But there was this hollow space now, this wound that kept reopening every time I thought about my son. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, my phone rang. "Marcus." "Mom," he said, and his voice had that careful tone people use when they're about to ask for something. "Vanessa and I need to talk to you." "I'm listening," I said, stirring sugar into my tea, trying to keep my voice steady. "Can you come over tonight?" Something in his voice made my stomach drop. "Is everything okay? Just, please come over." Around 7. I arrived at 6:55 because I was raised to be punctual even when walking into my own execution. Marcus opened the door this time, and he looked uncomfortable. Good. He should be. Vanessa was waiting in the living room, sitting on that white couch like a queen on a throne. She didn't stand when I entered, didn't smile, just gestured to the chair across from her like I was there for a job interview I was about to fail. "Dorothy," she began, and I noticed she never called me Mom. Never had. "We've been discussing some things, and we feel it's important to be honest with you." I looked at Marcus. He was standing by the window, hands in his pockets, staring at something outside, avoiding my eyes. "We're building a life here," Vanessa continued. "Marcus has worked incredibly hard to establish himself in his career, and I've worked hard to build our social standing. We're part of a community now, a certain level of society." "I'm aware," I said quietly. "And the thing is," she leaned forward, her expression almost sympathetic, almost kind, which somehow made it worse, "you don't really fit into that world. The way you dress, the way you talk, the stories you tell. It's all very working class." The word hung in the air like smoke. "I am working class," I said. "I've worked since I was 16 years old. I worked to put food on the table, to keep a roof over our heads, to send Marcus to college. And we're grateful," Vanessa said, though her face said otherwise. "But gratitude doesn't change the fact that you make us uncomfortable. You embarrass us, Dorothy. In front of people who matter." I looked at Marcus again. "Is this what you think?" He finally turned from the window. "Mom, it's just, you have to understand. Things are different now. We move in different circles. Vanessa's parents, they're rich," I supplied. "Important? Better than me. More refined," Vanessa corrected. "And yes, more successful. They've built an empire. They understand society, etiquette, expectations. They're hosting a major fundraiser next month, and Marcus's firm is one of the sponsors. Everyone who matters in this city will be there." "And you don't want me there," I said. It wasn't a question. "We think it's best," Vanessa said. "For everyone. We'd like you to take a step back. From family events, from our social life. Maybe in time, when you've learned to present yourself differently, we can revisit this. Present myself differently. Like I was a project. A fixer-upper. Something broken that needed to be hidden away." I stood up slowly. My legs felt like water, but I made them work. "So you want me to disappear?" "Don't be dramatic," Vanessa sighed. "We're just asking for boundaries. Surely you can understand that." I looked at my son, this man I'd carried for 9 months, nursed through colic and chickenpox and heartbreak. This boy I'd read to every night, even when I was so tired I could barely keep my eyes open. This young man I'd hugged the day he graduated college, both of us crying because we'd made it against all odds. "Marcus," I said. "Look at me." He did finally. And I saw it then, the shame in his eyes. He knew. He knew this was wrong. But he was going to do it anyway. "Okay," I said. "I'll stay away." Vanessa looked relieved. Marcus looked. I don't know what he looked like. I didn't stay long enough to figure it out. I drove home in a daze, and for the first time since James died, I felt truly alone. Not just lonely but erased. Like 34 years of marriage and 31 years of motherhood had been reduced to an inconvenience, an embarrassment, something to be managed and minimized. That night I didn't sleep. I sat in my small living room, surrounded by photos of Marcus at every age. Marcus on his first day of school. Marcus at his high school graduation. Marcus and James building a bookshelf together, both of them covered in sawdust and laughing. Marcus on his wedding day, so handsome in his tux, me in my simple blue dress because I'd spent most of my savings on giving them a beautiful reception. Had I done something wrong? Had I failed him somehow by not being more, by not having more, by not being the kind of mother who fit into marble kitchens and catered brunches? The next morning, I went to the community center like always. My friend Rita was there, setting up for the English conversation class she taught. Rita had known me for 15 years, had been there through James's illness, had held my hand at the funeral. "You look terrible," she said, which was Rita's way of saying she was worried. I told her everything. Every word, every look, every moment of that horrible conversation. When I finished, I was crying, and I hadn't even realized I'd started. Rita handed me tissues and sat beside me, her hand on my shoulder. "That girl needs a wake-up call," she said finally. "And your son needs to grow a spine." "I just don't understand," I said. "When did I become not good enough?" "You didn't become anything," Rita said firmly. "You've always been good enough. Better than good enough. You're the woman who organized the entire funding campaign that saved this center. You're the woman who helped 43 people become citizens last year. You're the woman who shows up, every single day, to make other people's lives better." "But I embarrass my son." "Your son embarrasses himself," Rita corrected. "And eventually he's going to realize that. The question is, what are you going to do until then?" I didn't have an answer. So I did what I always did, I kept working. I helped Mrs. Park navigate the Social Security system. I translated documents for the Nguyen family. I organized the weekly food distribution. I existed in my small corner of the world, trying not to think about the sun-shaped hole in my life. 3 weeks passed. Then 4. Marcus called once, a brief, awkward conversation where he asked how I was and I lied and said I was fine. Vanessa's fundraiser was coming up, he mentioned. It was going to be huge. The mayor was attending. Local celebrities. Major donors. His firm was so excited. I said all the right things. "Congratulations. How wonderful. I'm proud of you." All lies. I was proud of the boy he'd been. The man he'd become was a stranger. It was Rita who changed everything, though she didn't mean to. We were having coffee after a particularly long day, and she was scrolling through her phone, catching up on local news. "Oh, look at this," she said, turning her phone to show me. "They're doing a feature on community heroes. People who make a real difference in the city. They want nominations." I glanced at it without interest. "That's nice." "Dorothy," Rita said slowly, a strange look on her face. "I'm going to nominate you. Don't be ridiculous. I'm serious. Look at everything you do. You deserve recognition." "I don't do it for recognition," I said. "I do it because it matters." "Which is exactly why you deserve it," Rita insisted. I forgot about the conversation. Rita didn't. A week later, she told me she'd submitted a nomination, along with testimonials from dozens of people I'd helped over the years. I told her she was wasting her time. 2 weeks after that, I got an email. I stared at it for a full minute, reading it 3 times to make sure I understood. I'd been selected as one of 5 community heroes to be honored at a special ceremony. The ceremony that would take place at Vanessa's fundraiser. The mayor himself would be presenting the awards. My hands were shaking as I called Rita. "Did you know about this?" I demanded. "Did you know the ceremony was at the fundraiser?" "I might have noticed that detail in the fine print," Rita said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "So, are you going to go?" "I can't. Vanessa specifically uninvited me." "Vanessa doesn't run the mayor's office," Rita pointed out. "You were invited by the city. Officially. This isn't about her, Dorothy. This is about you being recognized for the incredible work you do. Marcus will die of embarrassment." "Good," Rita said flatly. "Maybe it'll teach him something." I thought about it for 3 days. I looked at that email over and over. Part of me wanted to decline, to spare Marcus the discomfort, to keep being small and invisible like they wanted. But another part of me, a part that had been growing stronger since that horrible night in their living room, whispered something different. Why should I hide? Why should I be ashamed of work that mattered, of a life spent helping people, of being exactly who I was? On the 4th day, I replied to the email. I would be honored to attend the ceremony. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I went shopping. Not at the discount stores I usually frequented, but at a real boutique. I found a dress, deep emerald green, elegant and simple. It costs more than I'd normally spend, but I'd been saving for years, being careful, being modest. For once, I was going to invest in myself. I got my hair done professionally. I bought new shoes. I even got a manicure, sitting in that salon chair feeling slightly ridiculous but also powerful. I was 62 years old and I was finally taking up space. The night of the fundraiser arrived. I stood in front of my mirror, looking at myself in that green dress, my hair styled, minimal makeup that somehow made me look elegant rather than overdone. I looked sophisticated, refined, all the things Vanessa said I wasn't. But more than that, I looked like myself. Just the best version of myself. Rita picked me up, she was attending as my guest, and we drove to the Grand Riverside Hotel, where the fundraiser was being held. It was the fanciest venue in the city, all chandeliers and marble and waiters carrying champagne on silver trays. "You ready?" Rita asked as we pulled up. "No," I said honestly, "but I'm going anyway." We walked in together, and I felt every eye turn toward us. The coordinator from the mayor's office spotted me immediately and rushed over, shaking my hand enthusiastically. "Mrs. Chun, we're so honored you're here. The mayor is very much looking forward to meeting you." She guided us to a special section near the front, seats reserved for the evening's honorees. I could see Marcus and Vanessa across the room, standing with a group of well-dressed people. They hadn't seen me yet. The evening began with cocktails and mingling. I met the other honorees, incredible people doing incredible work throughout the city. A teacher who'd started a literacy program in underserved neighborhoods. A doctor who provided free clinics to the homeless. A veteran who'd created a job training program for other vets. A young woman who'd built a network of safe houses for domestic violence survivors. I belonged here, I realized. With these people, doing this work, this was where I fit. "Dorothy." I turned. Marcus was standing there, his face pale, his eyes wide. Vanessa was beside him, and if looks could kill, I would have been dust. "What are you doing here?" Vanessa hissed, her smile fixed in place for anyone watching. "I was invited," I said calmly, "by the mayor's office." "That's not possible," Vanessa said. "This is a private event. We have a guest list." "I'm on the list," I said, and I pulled out the official invitation with the city seal and everything. "I'm being honored tonight. For my community service work." Marcus looked like he might faint. "Honored? Mrs. Chun is one of our 5 community heroes," the coordinator said, appearing at my elbow. "We had over 300 nominations this year. Hers was outstanding. The mayor specifically requested to meet her." Vanessa's face went through several interesting color changes. Marcus just stared at me like he'd never seen me before. "I didn't know," he finally said. "Mom, I didn't know you were." "Why would you?" I said gently. "You never asked." If you like this story, hit the like button. Your support means more than you know. The ceremony began shortly after. We were all seated, Marcus and Vanessa several rows behind me now, and the mayor took the stage. He was a charismatic man, well loved in the city, and he spoke passionately about the importance of community service, of people who gave their time and energy to make the city a better place. Then one by one he called us up. The teacher, the doctor, the veteran, the young woman with her safe houses. Each one got a beautiful award, a speech about their accomplishments, thunderous applause. Then it was my turn. "Our final honoree tonight," the mayor said, "is someone who embodies the very spirit of service. For over 15 years, Dorothy Chun has been the heart of the Riverside Community Center. She's helped hundreds of immigrants navigate the citizenship process. She's taught English classes. She's organized food drives, healthcare clinics, and legal aid services. She's been a translator, an advocate, a friend, and a lifeline to some of our city's most vulnerable residents." I walked up onto that stage, my legs somehow steady, and accepted the award from the mayor himself. It was a beautiful crystal piece, heavy in my hands, engraved with my name and the words "Community Hero." "Tell us," the mayor said, turning to me with a warm smile, "what drives you to do this work?" I looked out at the audience. Hundreds of faces all watching me. I found Marcus in the crowd, Vanessa beside him. He looked stunned. She looked furious. "I do it because I remember what it's like to need help," I said, my voice clear and steady. "My husband and I, we came from nothing. We built our life through hard work, but also through the kindness of people who helped us when we needed it. A neighbor who watched our son when I had to work late. A boss who gave my husband a chance when no one else would. A teacher who believed in our boy when he didn't believe in himself. My voice caught slightly, but I pushed through. We stand on the shoulders of everyone who helped us get where we are. And I believe we have a responsibility to reach back and help others climb too. That's not charity. That's community. That's what it means to be human. The applause was deafening. People stood. The mayor shook my hand again, and then, to my shock, he hugged me. This city needs more people like you, he said into my ear. I returned to my seat in a daze, clutching my award. Rita was crying, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. You were perfect, she whispered. The ceremony ended, and immediately people swarmed me. The other honorees congratulating each other. Attendees who wanted to shake my hand, to tell me about immigrants they knew who I'd helped, to thank me for my work. Important-looking people in expensive suits asking about the community center, about how they could volunteer, how they could donate. And through it all, I could see Marcus and Vanessa, standing frozen in the crowd, watching me be celebrated, be praised, be recognized as valuable, as someone who mattered. The mayor's assistant approached me. Mrs. Chun, the mayor would like to take a photo with all the honorees for the city website. Would you mind? Of course, I said. We gathered on the stage again, and the mayor stood in the center, an arm around me and the veteran. Flashbulbs went off. This photo's going in the paper tomorrow, the mayor told us. And on every city social media account. You're all celebrities now. After the photos, a woman in an elegant suit approached me. Mrs. Chan, I'm Elena Rodriguez from Channel 7 News. We'd love to do a feature story on your work at the community center. Would you be interested? Yes, I said. Yes, I think that would be wonderful. It might help us get more funding. Perfect, she said, handing me her card. We'll be in touch this week. It was surreal. An hour ago, I'd been in embarrassment. Now I was being interviewed by news reporters, invited to join committees, asked to speak at other events. The mayor himself took me aside at one point. Dorothy, he said, I've been looking at the community center's funding. It's criminally low for the work you do. I'm going to personally make sure that changes in next year's budget. I felt tears prick my eyes. Thank you, I managed. Thank you, he corrected. People like you make people like me look good. Finally, inevitably, Marcus and Vanessa made their way to me. The crowd around me had thinned. People moving toward the bar and the dessert table. Rita had stepped away to take a phone call. Mom, Marcus said, and his voice was strange, tight. I had no idea about any of this. No, I agreed. You didn't. Vanessa was pale. Her perfect composure cracked. This is quite a surprise, she said, and I could hear the effort it took to sound civil. Is it? I asked. I've been doing this work for 15 years. I've told you about it. Both of you. You just never listened. We didn't realize it was so significant, Marcus said weakly. You didn't realize I was significant, I corrected. There's a difference. The mayor knows you personally, Vanessa said, and she sounded almost dazed. You're going to be in the newspaper. On the news. Is that what matters to you? I asked. That important people know me? That I'm going to have public recognition? She didn't answer. She didn't need to. I could see it in her face. 3 weeks ago, I said quietly, you told me I was an embarrassment, that I didn't fit into your world, that I needed to stay away from your life. Mom, that wasn't, Marcus started. Yes, it was, I interrupted. It was exactly that. And you know what? You were right. I don't fit into your world. Your world is about appearances, about status, about impressing people who don't actually matter. My world is about helping people who need it. And I'm not ashamed of that anymore. We didn't mean to hurt you, Marcus said, and to his credit, he looked genuinely anguished. But you did, I said. You hurt me deeply. You made me feel small and worthless and ashamed of who I am. And I let you because you're my son and I love you and I would do anything for you, including erasing myself. I held up my award, that beautiful crystal catching the light from the chandeliers. But tonight, this city told me I matter. Hundreds of people told me my work matters. The mayor told me I make a difference. And you know what? I'm going to believe them. Because they've seen me, really seen me in ways you never have. Vanessa opened her mouth, probably to say something cutting, but Marcus touched her arm, stopping her. You're right, he said, and his voice cracked. Mom, you're right. I've been such a fool. Such a coward. I let society. I forgot what you taught me. That what matters isn't what you have, it's what you do with it. That success isn't about money or status, it's about impact. Tears were running down his face now, this 31-year-old successful businessman crying in the middle of a fancy fundraiser. You're a hero, Mom. A real hero. And I called you an embarrassment. How do I even begin to apologize for that? I looked at my son, at this man I'd raised, and I saw something I hadn't seen in years. I saw the boy who used to help me carry groceries, the teenager who would translate documents for our elderly neighbors, the young man who once told me he wanted to make the world better, not just make money. He was still in there, buried under Vanessa's expectations and society's pressures, but still there. You begin, I said softly, by remembering who you are, and whose son you are. Not because I'm important or successful or recognized by the mayor, but because I taught you that every person has value. That kindness matters more than status. That embarrassment is not about where you come from, it's about how you treat people. I remember, he whispered. I do remember, Mom. I lost my way. Then find it again, I said. Vanessa was watching this exchange with an expression I couldn't quite read. Dismay maybe, or calculation. I honestly didn't care anymore. She didn't get to hurt me anymore because I wasn't going to let her. Dorothy, she said finally, I owe you an apology. I waited. I judged you, she continued, the words clearly painful for her. I judged you based on superficial things. Your clothes, your manner, your background. I didn't see what you actually do, what you actually contribute. That was wrong of me. It was a politician's apology, careful and calculated. But it was something. Thank you, I said. I hope you mean that. We'll do better, Marcus said. I'll do better. I promise, Mom. He looked around at the fundraiser, at all these wealthy people drinking expensive champagne and congratulating themselves on their charity. I want to volunteer. At the community center. I want to see your work. I want to help. Do you? I asked. Or do you just want to be seen helping? He flinched. I deserve that. But I mean it. Let me prove it to you. We'll see, I said. Time will tell. The mayor's assistant returned then, asking if I wanted to join the other honorees for a private reception. I looked at Marcus and Vanessa, at these two people who had tried to make me invisible, and I smiled. I'd love to, I told the assistant. And to Marcus and Vanessa, enjoy the rest of your evening. It's quite a party. I walked away from them toward people who valued me, toward a life that mattered. Behind me, I heard Vanessa say something sharp to Marcus, but I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. For the first time in months, I felt like myself again. Not small. Not ashamed. Just Dorothy-chan, community hero, walking into a room where I belonged. The photograph hit the front page of the city newspaper the next morning. There I was, standing beside the mayor, my emerald dress catching the light, my smile genuine and proud. The headline read, 5 community heroes honored. Meet the unsung champions making our city better. I was making coffee when my phone started ringing. Rita called first, screaming with excitement. Then Mrs. Huang from the community center, crying happy tears. Then people I hadn't spoken to in years, neighbors and old friends, all congratulating me. My phone buzzed constantly with texts and messages. But not from Marcus. Not yet. I went to the community center that Monday, and found a crowd waiting outside. A news van was parked on the street, and Elena Rodriguez from Channel 7 was there with a cameraman. Mrs. Chun, she called, waving. Are you ready for our interview? They filmed me for 2 hours. Walking through the center, helping Mr. Kim practice his English pronunciation, showing them the citizenship classroom, the food pantry, the computer lab where elderly immigrants learn to email their grandchildren. Elena asked thoughtful questions and I answered honestly, talking about the work, about the people we served, about why it mattered. What do you want people to understand about immigrants? Elena asked. I thought about Mrs. Huang, who'd been a professor in China and now cleaned offices at night so her daughter could go to medical school. About Mr. Rodriguez, who'd left everything behind to escape violence and now volunteered teaching carpentry to teenagers. About all the brilliant, brave, hard-working people I'd met over the years. That they're not asking for handouts, I said. They're asking for a chance. The same chance my family got. The same chance every American family got at some point, unless they were here first or brought here in chains. We're all immigrants or descendants of immigrants. And we all needed help at some point. That's not weakness. That's the human story. The piece aired that Wednesday during the evening news. 6 minutes of footage beautifully edited, showing the center and the people we helped. They included testimonials from people I'd worked with over the years, all saying generous things that made me cry. At the end, Elena looked into the camera and said, Dorothy Chan has helped over 400 people become citizens, connected thousands with vital services, and created a community where everyone belongs. She is proof that one person with dedication and compassion can change hundreds of lives. My phone exploded again. The community center's donation line lit up. People wanted to volunteer, to help, to be part of what we were doing. It was overwhelming and beautiful and terrifying all at once. On Thursday, Marcus finally called. I saw the news piece, he said. His voice was quiet, heavy with something I couldn't quite name. Mom, it was incredible. You were incredible. Thank you, I said carefully. Can we talk? In person? Please. I met him at a coffee shop near the center, neutral ground. He was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth looking tired. There were circles under his eyes, and his usually immaculate hair was slightly disheveled. You look exhausted, I said, sliding into the seat across from him. I haven't been sleeping well, he admitted. Mom, I've been doing a lot of thinking. About everything. About who I've become. I waited, sipping the coffee he'd ordered for me. He'd remembered how I liked it, at least. I watched that news piece 4 times, he continued. And each time I saw someone I didn't recognize. Not you, I mean. Me. I saw myself reflected in your story. In your words about helping people and community and doing what matters. And I realized I've done none of that. I've spent 5 years chasing money and status and Vanessa's approval, and I've accomplished nothing that matters. You've built a successful career, I offered. I've made rich people richer, he corrected bitterly. I've worked on mergers and acquisitions that put people out of work. I've helped corporations find tax loopholes that defund schools and hospitals. That's what I do, Mom. That's what I've been so proud of, what I chose over you. Marcus. No, let me finish, he said. I need to say this. When Dad was dying, do you remember what he told me? I did remember. James had called Marcus to his bedside 2 days before he passed, had spoken to him alone. Marcus never told me what they discussed. He told me to take care of you, Marcus said, his voice breaking. He said, your mother is the strongest person I know, but even the strong need someone in their corner. Be that person for her. Don't let the world make her feel small. Those were his words, Mom. And I failed him. I failed you. I became the person who made you feel small. Tears were streaming down his face now, and he didn't try to hide them. I let Vanessa convince me that where we came from was something to be ashamed of, that you were something to be ashamed of. And I was too weak to stand up to her, too worried about what her family would think, too caught up in playing the part of the successful young executive. I reached across the table and took his hand. It was shaking. Why are you telling me this now? Because I'm leaving the firm, he said. I handed in my resignation yesterday. I sat back shocked. Marcus, that's your career. Everything you worked for. Everything I worked for? He laughed, a bitter sound. I worked for a corner office and a 6-figure salary, and the approval of people who don't actually care about me. That's not achievement, Mom. That's just gilded emptiness. What will you do? I don't know yet, he admitted. But I know I can't keep doing this. I can't keep being this person. Vanessa is furious, of course. We've been fighting constantly since the fundraiser. She thinks I'm throwing our life away. Are you? I asked gently. Maybe, he said. But maybe the life I'm throwing away isn't worth keeping. I want to do something that matters, Mom. Like you do. I want to look at myself in the mirror and be proud of what I see. Do you think his decision was right or wrong? Tell me in the comments. We talked for 2 more hours. He asked about the center, about the work we did, about how he could help. Not as a tax write-off or a photo opportunity, but actually help. I saw glimpses of the boy I'd raised. The one who'd wanted to be a public defender before law school, convinced him corporate law was where the real prestige lay. There's an immigration law clinic that partners with the center, I told him. They're always understaffed. Your law degree could actually make a real difference there. His eyes lit up. Do you think they'd take me? I think they'd be grateful for the help, I said. But Marcus, you need to understand something. This work, it's not glamorous. It's hard and it's heartbreaking sometimes, and the pay is terrible. You can't do it for redemption or to prove something. You have to do it because it matters. I know, he said. And I want to. I really want to. We parted with a hug, a real one. The first genuine embrace we'd shared in years. As I watched him walk to his car, I felt something shift in my chest. Hope maybe. Or forgiveness beginning to take root. But Vanessa was a different story. She showed up at my apartment that Saturday unannounced. I answered the door to find her standing there in designer jeans and a cashmere sweater, her face a mask of controlled fury. We need to talk, she said. Come in, I said, because what else could I do? She sat on my worn couch, looking around my modest living room with barely concealed disdain. So this is where you live, she said. I've never been here before. You've never been invited, I replied. She had the grace to look uncomfortable. Dorothy, I'm going to be direct. Whatever you said to Marcus, whatever you did, you need to undo it. Excuse me. He quit his job, Vanessa said, her voice rising. A 6-figure job at one of the best firms in the city. He threw away his career, our future, everything we've been building. And it's because of you. It's because of him, I corrected. His choice. His decision. You put ideas in his head, she insisted. All this talk about meaningful work and helping people and community service. That's fine for you, Dorothy. You don't have ambition. But Marcus, he was going places. He could have been a partner in 5 years. We could have had everything. You already have everything, I said quietly. You have a beautiful home, financial security, social standing. What more do you need? More, she said, standing up, pacing. I want more because there's always more. That's how you get ahead in this world. You don't settle for enough, you reach for everything. That's what my parents taught me. And what did my husband teach Marcus? I asked. Before he died. Do you even know? She stopped pacing, frowned. What does that have to do with anything? James told Marcus to take care of me, I said. To not let the world make me feel small. Your husband has been carrying that guilt for 5 years, Vanessa. Guilt because he failed his father's dying wish. And you made him fail it. You made him choose between honoring his father's memory and keeping you happy. That's not a marriage. That's a hostage situation. Her face flushed red. How dare you? I love Marcus. Do you? I asked. Or do you love what he represents? The successful husband, the perfect life, the image you can present to your family and friends. That's not fair. Isn't it? I stood up, facing her. You've never called me mom. Not once in 5 years of marriage. You've never asked about my life, my work, my interests. You've never invited me to a single event except when you thought it would reflect well on you. You've treated me like an embarrassing accessory you wish you could return. Because you made it so hard. Vanessa burst out. You didn't fit, Dorothy. You didn't try to fit. You showed up to our events in cheap clothes with your working class stories and your community center talk, and you made us look bad. No, I said firmly. I made you feel bad. There's a difference. I reminded you that Marcus came from humble beginnings, and that made you uncomfortable because you wanted to pretend he'd always been one of you. But he wasn't. He isn't. And the harder you try to erase where he came from, the more miserable he becomes. She sank back onto the couch, suddenly looking deflated. I don't know how to be married to someone who doesn't want what I want, she said quietly. Then maybe you shouldn't be married to him, I said. And the words surprised me even as I said them. She looked up, shocked. Are you trying to break us up? No, I said. I'm trying to be honest. Vanessa, I don't hate you. I don't even dislike you, really. You're a product of your upbringing just like all of us. But you and Marcus want different things now. He wants meaning. You want success. Those aren't always incompatible, but the way you each define them might be. I don't want to lose him, she whispered, and for the first time, I heard real vulnerability in her voice. Then don't lose yourself trying to keep him, I said. Figure out what you actually want. Not what your parents want or what society expects. And let Marcus figure out what he wants. Maybe you'll find a way forward together. Maybe you won't. But right now you're both just playing roles and you're both miserable. She left shortly after. And I didn't know if anything I'd said had made a difference. Some people aren't ready to hear the truth, no matter how gently you speak it. The following week was a whirlwind. The news piece brought unprecedented attention to the community center. Donations poured in more than we'd received in years. Volunteers signed up faster than we could process them. Local organizations reached out about partnerships. The mayor's office confirmed increased funding for the next fiscal year. And Marcus showed up. He arrived on a Tuesday morning, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, looking nervous. I called the immigration clinic, he said. They said I could shadow their senior attorney for a few days, see if it's a good fit. That's wonderful, I said. And I thought, maybe I could volunteer here too? Whatever you need. Filing, translating, I don't care. I just want to help. I put him to work organizing the donation closet, sorting through boxes of clothes and household items that had been dropped off. It was humble work, nothing glamorous about folding sheets and categorizing dishes. But he did it without complaint, working alongside Mrs. Park and Mr. Rodriguez, listening to their stories, learning their names. At lunch we sat in the small break room, eating sandwiches I'd brought from home. This place is incredible, Mom, he said. I've been here 3 hours and I've already met a dozen people with the most amazing stories. Mr. Rodriguez was a civil engineer in Venezuela. Mrs. Park was a concert pianist. These aren't just people who need help. They're brilliant, accomplished people who are starting over in a new country. That's what I've been trying to tell you, I said gently. Everyone has a story. Everyone has value. You just have to be willing to see it. I haven't been willing to see much of anything, he admitted. I've been walking around with blinders on, focused only on climbing the ladder. I didn't even realize how empty it all was until I saw you on that stage with the mayor. You looked happy, Mom. Genuinely happy. And I realized I couldn't remember the last time I felt that way. Over the next few weeks, Marcus became a regular fixture at the center. He started working with the immigration clinic, using his legal skills to help people navigate the complex citizenship process. He was good at it, patient and thorough, and the clients loved him. I watched him transform slowly, from the tense, status-obsessed man he'd become into someone I recognized. Someone who smiled more. Someone who cared. Vanessa didn't come around. Marcus didn't talk about her much, but I gathered things were strained. They were in counseling, he mentioned once, trying to figure out if their marriage could survive such different visions of the future. Whatever happens, I told him, you need to be honest with her and yourself. Don't stay because of guilt or obligation. Don't leave because it's easier. Really think about what you want your life to look like. I know what I want it to look like, he said. I want it to look like yours. The words touched me deeply, but I shook my head. You need to find your own path, Marcus. Not mine. Not Vanessa's. Not what Dad would have wanted. Yours. In November, the community center held our annual Thanksgiving celebration. It was a tradition we'd started years ago, a potluck where everyone brought dishes from their home countries, creating a beautiful, chaotic feast of flavors and cultures. We usually got about 50 people, but this year word had spread. Over 200 people showed up. We had to move everything to the parking lot, setting up tables and chairs outside under a tent Rita's husband borrowed from his church. There was Korean kimchi next to Mexican tamales, next to Polish pierogi, next to Ethiopian injera. Children ran around playing while adults swapped recipes and stories in a dozen different languages. Someone brought a guitar, and soon there was music, people singing in languages I didn't understand but felt in my chest. Marcus brought Vanessa. I saw them arrive together, and my heart clenched with worry. But as the afternoon progressed, I watched something shift. Vanessa was stiff at first, uncomfortable, clearly out of her element. But Mrs. Huang engaged her in conversation, asking about her work, genuinely interested. Then Rita introduced her to a woman who ran a nonprofit connecting low-income families with legal services, and suddenly Vanessa was talking animatedly about business development strategies and fundraising. I found her later, helping Mrs. Park serve food, both of them laughing about something. "Dorothy," Vanessa said when she saw me, and there was something different in her voice. Warmth, maybe. "This is amazing. I had no idea. I mean, I knew the center did good work, but seeing it like this, it's something special," I agreed. "That woman I was talking to, Lisa Chan, the one with the legal services nonprofit? She asked if I'd be interested in consulting for them, helping them develop a sustainable business model, write grants, build corporate partnerships. She said my skills could make a real difference. Would you be interested?" I asked. "I think I might be," she said slowly. "I've been thinking about what you said, about figuring out what I actually want, not just what I'm supposed to want. And I realized I do want success. I do want to achieve things and be recognized. But maybe there are different ways to do that. Maybe helping organizations like this become more effective, more sustainable, maybe that's a kind of success too." "It absolutely is," I said. She looked at Marcus, who was across the tent teaching a group of kids how to fold napkins into swans, all of them giggling. "He's different here," she said. "Lighter. I haven't seen him this relaxed in years." "He's doing what makes him happy," I said. "I know," she sighed. "And I've been fighting it because I was scared. Scared of what it meant for us, for our future, for the life I thought we were building. But watching him today, I don't want to be the person who makes him dim his light, just because it doesn't fit my plan." It wasn't an apology exactly, but it was acknowledgement. Growth. It was something. As the sun set and the temperature dropped, people started gathering around the space heaters Rita had set up. Someone suggested we each share something we were grateful for, and around the circle it went. Gratitude for freedom, for family, for second chances, for community, for kindness from strangers, for the center, for America despite its flaws, for hope. When it came to me, I looked around at all these faces, these beautiful, diverse, resilient people who'd become my family. "I'm grateful for all of you," I said, "for letting me be part of your journeys, for teaching me that family isn't just blood. It's the people who show up, who see you, who value you." Marcus spoke next. "I'm grateful for my mom," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "for never giving up on me, even when I gave her every reason to, for showing me what actually matters, for being exactly who she is unapologetically, and teaching me to do the same." Vanessa was last in our little group. She was quiet for a long moment and I thought she might pass. But then she spoke. "I'm grateful for difficult conversations," she said. "For people who tell you the truth even when it's hard to hear. For being challenged to grow." She looked at me. "And for second chances, if they're still on offer." "They are," I said softly. December brought unexpected news. The mayor's office called to inform me that I'd been selected as Grand Marshal for the city's holiday parade, one of the largest events of the year. They wanted me to ride in a convertible, waving to crowds, representing community service and civic engagement. "I'm a 62-year-old woman who works in a community center," I told the mayor's assistant. "Are you sure you don't want someone more? I don't know, exciting." "Mrs. Chan," she said, laughing, "you've become one of the most recognized faces in the city. After the ceremony and the news piece, people know you. They're inspired by you. We'd be honored if you'd accept." So I did. Because why not? I'd spent too many years making myself small. If they wanted to celebrate the work, celebrate community service, I'd be there. The parade was magical. Cold and clear. The streets lined with thousands of people. Holiday decorations glittering everywhere. I sat in that convertible wearing a warm coat and a ridiculous sash that said Grand Marshal, waving like I'd done this my whole life. And the crowds, they cheered. People called my name. Children held signs saying, "Thank you, Mrs. Chuan." Adults shouted that they'd been helped by the center or knew someone who had. Marcus and Vanessa were in the crowd, both waving and cheering louder than anyone. Vanessa had gotten involved with 3 nonprofits consulting pro bono, and she was apparently very good at it. Her business skills, it turned out, translated beautifully to the nonprofit world. She and Marcus still had challenges, still went to counseling, still fought sometimes about the future. But they were trying, both of them, to build something real instead of something perfect. After the parade, there was a reception at City Hall. The mayor pulled me aside at one point. "Dorothy, I wanted you to know something. Next month, the city council is voting on a proposal to triple the funding for community centers across the city, modeled on your program. We're calling it the Chun Initiative." I actually gasped. "You're naming it after me? You've proven what's possible when we invest in community," he said. "When we support the people doing the real work. This is how we scale that. How we create more centers, help more people, build stronger communities. You started something important, Dorothy. We're going to help it grow." I cried right there in City Hall in front of the mayor and a dozen city council members. Happy tears, grateful tears, overwhelmed tears. That night, I sat in my small apartment, looking at the award from the ceremony, the newspaper clippings, the photos from the parade. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Mom, Vanessa and I have been talking. We want to start a foundation, funding community programs, supporting grassroots organizations, investing in the kind of work you do. Will you help us? Be on the board? Make sure we do it right." I stared at the message for a long time. 6 months ago, my son had called me an embarrassment. Now he was asking me to help him give back, to use his resources for good, to be part of something meaningful. I texted back. I'd be honored. Christmas Eve, I hosted dinner at my apartment for the first time in years. Marcus and Vanessa came, and I'd also invited Rita and her family, Mrs. Huang and her daughter, Mr. Rodriguez and his wife. It was crowded and chaotic, and my small kitchen could barely handle cooking for that many people, but it was perfect. We squeezed around my table, plates overlapping, elbows bumping, passing dishes and laughing and telling stories. Vanessa ended up in a deep conversation with Mrs. Huang's daughter about medical school, offering to help her practice for interviews. Marcus and Mr. Rodriguez were planning a carpentry workshop for teenagers at the center. Rita was showing everyone embarrassing photos of me from years ago on her phone. At one point I stepped back just watching. This was my life. Not fancy or impressive by Vanessa's old standards maybe, but rich beyond measure. Full of people who mattered, who cared, who showed up. "You look happy, Mom," Marcus said, appearing at my elbow. "I am," I said. "I really am. I'm sorry it took me so long to see this," he said. "To see you. Really see you. You see me now," I said. "That's what matters. Dad would be proud of you," he said softly. "Of the work you do, the lives you've changed. I'm proud of you, Mom. So incredibly proud." "I'm proud of you too," I said. "Not for the career you had or the success you achieved, but for having the courage to change course. To choose meaning over money. That's harder than it sounds. I learned from the best," he said, hugging me. If you like this story, hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe to get more stories from me. January brought new beginnings. The Chun Initiative passed unanimously, with funding to create 5 new community centers across the city. The foundation Marcus and Vanessa were starting got its nonprofit status approved. The immigration clinic where Marcus volunteered offered him a permanent position, decent pay, meaningful work, a chance to use his skills for good. He took it without hesitation. Vanessa's consulting work with nonprofits grew into a full-time job, with a coalition of social service organizations. She was making less money than before, but when I saw her at the center one day, she was genuinely smiling. Not the practiced, perfect smile I'd seen for years, but something real. "I finally understand," she told me. "Both of us organizing donated coats for winter distribution. Why you do this work. How it fills you up in ways that money and status never could. I spent so much time chasing the wrong things, Dorothy. Thank you for not giving up on Marcus. On us. I'm his mother," I said simply. "That's not something I know how to give up on. Can I?" She hesitated. "Can I call you Mom? I know I never did before, and I understand if you'd rather I didn't. But I'd like to. If that's okay." I looked at this woman who'd once called me an embarrassment, who'd tried to erase me from her perfect life, who'd hurt me deeply. I looked at her now, in jeans and a sweatshirt, sorting coats with cold chapped hands, trying to be better, trying to build something real. "I'd like that," I said. She hugged me then, fierce and sudden, and whispered, "Thank you. For everything." In March, the new community centers opened across the city. I attended every ribbon-cutting ceremony, watched each one fill up with people needing help, people offering help, people building community. The mayor gave speeches at each one, talking about the importance of investing in neighborhoods, in people, in the infrastructure of compassion. None of this would exist without Dorothy Chan, he said at the final ceremony. Without her vision, her dedication, her absolute belief that every person deserves dignity and support. She didn't wait for the government to solve problems. She didn't wait for someone else to step up. She just started helping one person at a time until it grew into a movement. That's what citizenship looks like. That's what heroism looks like. People applauded, and I stood there feeling slightly ridiculous but also deeply moved. Because he was right. I had started something. Not alone, never alone, but I'd been part of creating something that would outlast me. That would help people I'd never meet. That would ripple forward into a future I wouldn't see. That was legacy. That was impact. That was what mattered. April brought my 63rd birthday. Marcus and Vanessa threw me a party at the original community center, inviting everyone who'd been part of this journey. Hundreds of people showed up. Current and former clients, volunteers, city council members, reporters who'd covered the story, other community organizers from across the city. Even the mayor came, staying for 2 hours talking to everyone, making sure he understood what made this place work. There was a cake big enough to feed an army, covered in flowers made of frosting. There were speeches, too many speeches, people saying generous things that made me cry. Mrs. Huang talked about how I'd helped her become a citizen, how her daughter was graduating medical school next month, because I'd connected her family with scholarships and resources. Mr. Rodriguez talked about how the center had given him purpose after losing everything, how it had become his second home. Rita spoke last. I've known Dorothy for 15 years, she said. And in that time I've watched her change hundreds of lives. But more than that, I've watched her remain completely, stubbornly herself. She never tried to be impressive or important or special. She just tried to be helpful. And in being helpful, she became all those other things too. She taught all of us that you don't have to be rich or powerful to make a difference. You just have to show up. You just have to care. Marcus gave me his gift privately later after most people had left. It was a framed photo from the mayor's ceremony, the moment I was on stage accepting my award. But he'd added something to the frame, a quote engraved on a small plaque below the photo. To the world you may be one person, but to one person you may be the world. Mom, you've been the world to so many people. Thank you for teaching me what actually matters. Love, Marcus. I cried obviously, and I hugged my son, this man who'd lost his way but found it again, who'd hurt me but learned from it, who'd finally understood what his father tried to tell him 5 years ago. I love you, I told him. I'm so proud of who you've become. I'm becoming who you raised me to be, he said. Finally. That night, alone in my apartment, I thought about the journey that brought me here. 6 months ago, I'd been standing in my son's kitchen being called an embarrassment. I'd felt small, worthless, ashamed of who I was. Now I was a city-recognized community hero. My work had inspired new programs, new funding, new possibilities. I'd been on the news, in the paper, celebrated by the mayor. My son had rediscovered his purpose. My daughter-in-law had found hers. But more than any of that, I'd rediscovered my own worth. Not because important people recognized it, though that was nice, but because I'd finally stopped letting other people's opinions define my value. I'd stopped making myself small to fit into someone else's idea of acceptable. I was Dorothy Chun. I helped immigrants become citizens. I organized food drives and taught English and connected people with resources. I showed up every day and did work that mattered. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Did I do the right thing? Walking into that fundraiser, accepting that award, refusing to stay small and quiet and ashamed? Tell me what you think. Because here's what I learned through all of this. You can't control what people think of you. My daughter-in-law thought I was an embarrassment, and maybe by her standards I was. But those were her standards, not mine. Her measure of success, not mine. Her definition of value, not mine. The moment you stop trying to fit into someone else's box, you discover you were never meant to fit. You were meant to build your own box, or maybe just live without boxes altogether. You were meant to take up space, to be loud if that's who you are, to be exactly yourself without apology. And sometimes the people who tried to make you small will realize they were wrong. Sometimes they'll grow and change and learn to see you clearly. Sometimes, like with Marcus and Vanessa, there's redemption and healing and new understanding. But even if they don't, even if they never see your worth, you have to see it yourself. You have to know deep in your bones that you matter, that your work matters, that your life, lived with purpose and compassion and dedication to something bigger than yourself, is meaningful. If you've ever felt invisible, know that it's never too late to take your power back. It's never too late to stop shrinking yourself. It's never too late to say, "This is who I am, and I'm done apologizing for it." They called me an embarrassment. And you know what? I walked into that room anyway. I accepted that award. I let the mayor honor me. I let the city celebrate the work I'd been doing quietly for years. And in doing that, I didn't just change my own life. I changed my son's life, my daughter-in-law's life, and the lives of thousands of people across the city who now have access to better resources and support. That's not embarrassment. That's impact. That's what happens when you stop letting fear and shame keep you small. That's what happens when you believe you deserve the space you take up in this world. So if someone tells you you're too much, too loud, too ordinary, too anything, remember this story. Remember that the woman they tried to hide became the woman the mayor honored. Remember that the work they dismissed as insignificant became a citywide initiative. Remember that being yourself, fully and unapologetically, is the most powerful thing you can do. And remember that every person has value. Every story matters. Every act of kindness creates ripples you'll never see. You don't have to be perfect or impressive or important by society's standards. You just have to be willing to help, to show up, to care. That's all I ever did. And look where it led. If you like this story, hit the like button. And don't forget to subscribe to get more stories from me. With love and respect, Auntie Helen Stories.